Welcome to Nonprofit Nerd Impact Unleashed. Get ready to dive into the world of nonprofit leadership and sustainability, where the passion and unstoppable dedication of those making a real impact are celebrated. With your host, Jarrett Ransom, get ready to explore inspiring stories and game changing strategies of nonprofit leaders from across the sector. In this season, we're focusing on critical management challenges that are key to the long-term success of nonprofit organizations. Nonprofit Nerd Impact Unleashed is your go-to podcast for no-nonsense, in-depth conversations with the real-life superheroes of the nonprofit sector. Get ready to unleash your inner nerdiness and learn how to navigate and overcome the challenges that help build stronger, more sustainable organizations. Now, let's dive in and harness the collective power of our nonprofit networks to create lasting change.
Welcome back, my friends. It's another day, another episode, and I'm excited to welcome Mary Crogan from Bloomerang to the podcast. During our conversation, Mary shared some practical strategies to help you feel less stressed. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine you and your team actually feeling less stressed and even reduce some burnout? To me, that is a win-win. She highlights how some small efficiency changes in your day-to-day operations can truly lead to a bigger impact on your mission. So I think you're really going to enjoy what Mary has to share. And I already planted a seed and invited her back for another conversation because I do believe we can build on this. Another huge shout out of immense gratitude to our sponsors, Bloomerang and Chazen, for sponsoring season 5's episode. Your support makes these conversations possible. Thank you so much and enjoy Mary's conversation. Well, hi, Mary. How are you today?
Hi, I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you. For all of our listeners, this was supposed to be a live recording that we did in person at the QGIve conference in Florida just recently. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it. So here we are. I'm in Phoenix, and I believe you're in Massachusetts. Is that right?
Yes, I'm just outside of Boston, enjoying a wet day.
Yes, yes. Well, I think we're supposed to have a wet day tomorrow, but right now it's the typical Arizona sunshine. So
Yeah.
I know. I wish I could package it up and send it. I think I would be a millionaire if I could do that. But Mary Crogan, thrilled to have you. Mary is the vice president in product marketing at Bloomerang. So VP product marketing, what exactly does that entail? I'm not quite sure.
It's interesting. I get that question a lot. Well, what's the difference between like product marketing and regular marketing? My role, my responsibility in my teams is to make sure that we're working closely with the product and engineering teams to ensure that feature functionality that we are developing and then delivering into the market, that there's a fit with the needs of nonprofits, and that we're really clearly communicating what the benefits are so that our marketing and our communication then with customers and other nonprofits, they get a real sense of how they can benefit from working with Bloomerang.
Fantastic. That was exactly my question in my head. I was like, what is the difference between marketing, product marketing? So thank you for answering that. And I'm glad I'm not the only one that's tossed that question your way. And you've been with Bloomerang, I believe, a couple of years, maybe going on 3, but your whole career really has been in this same realm. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, in the sense that, I've spent the first half of my career working in digital and advertising agencies here in the Boston area. And I made the switch over to client side back about 18 years ago now. I joined Constant Contact and was there for 7 years. And I've spent my whole career in the B2B tech SaaS environment. I joined Bloomerang, coming up on 3 years ago.
3 years. So what I love about that is I believe you have this perfect way of seeing how so many nonprofits, not just one, but many nonprofits are facing current times, challenges, opportunities. And these conversations, we dive into leadership sustainability, right? Like a big piece of that conversation, truly, Mary, is a focus on efficiency. And that's exactly what I want to dive into with you today. So to get us started really with like efficiency as our focal point, I'm really curious how you're defining purpose-driven efficiency in the sector. And also, this is going to be a two-part question. How does it differ from traditional efficiency measures?
That's a really good question. When you think about efficiency, it's the thing that comes to mind almost immediately is first, there's a negative connotation. And two, it's about, cutting costs and saving time and saving money. And that's a very traditional sort of corporate mindset or viewpoint when you think about efficiency. But, for nonprofits, for mission-driven organizations, honestly, it's about so much more. It's about something bigger, and it's about amplifying impact, right? It means, making sure that, every dollar, every hour spent, every resource is, moving you closer to fulfilling your mission. It's about using your resources effectively to deepen your donor relationships, and expand your programs and strengthen your impact that you can have in the community. And it's at the bottom line, it's not about cutting corners. It's about repurposing time, and creating conditions so you can ensure the long-term success of your organization.
So I'm writing this down for any of you that are also listening to this on YouTube. You might see me, because I love that you said it's not all about cutting corners. And I do believe that that's the negative connotation, is we need to drive efficiency. Well, what I just heard you say is cut, cut, cut. And no, it's really about grow, grow, grow the impact, right? Like really focusing on that impact. So what do you see might be the biggest challenge or biggest challenges that our nonprofit friends are facing when it comes to the implementation of these efficient processes?
We all know how hard it is running a nonprofit, and it's an exercise every day in sort of balancing these urgent demands in your communities, with the fact that you have limited resources. But, inefficiencies, these small sort of nagging gaps you might have in your processes or your communication or your decision making, those can add up really, really quickly. And they often in aggregate come at a cost. And, it's more than just a drain on your time and your financial resources. It's limiting your ability to achieve the impact that you want to have. It's impacting your ability to maintain morale. I mean, let's face it, we were talking about this earlier, Jarrett. It's challenging times, and morale within your teams, which are already thin in terms of time, that's a challenge. So this is, it's about that. It's about responding quickly to opportunities for deepening donor relationships when they present themselves, strengthening the impact. So eliminating those efficiencies can go a long way in strengthening your organization. But you're right, there are challenges. There's always challenges, unfortunately. But I think the first one, as an executive director or a development director, creating the space in an already busy day, but creating the space to kind of take a step back and evaluate, okay, how are we functioning on a day-to-day basis? How are we communicating? What's our decision-making process? So you can examine it and figure out where are those, like I said, small nagging gaps that could warrant some improvement. Another challenge, we see this a lot, is there's resistance to change within an organization. Because they think that the process, well, it's too important. We can't change that, or it's how it's always been. We even run into that in corporate America, right? And another challenge is lacking the tools to make the changes that you want to make, and fear that the tools and adopting newer tools are going to be, it's going to be too expensive or it's going to be too complex. You asked about, I think, misconceptions too. I think, again, going back to this idea of efficiency and having a negative connotation that's equated with this idea of cost cutting and things like that, rather than focusing on this idea of maximizing your impact, is one. And I think also the idea that changing process is a negative thing.
Right.
Because it's going to take time, it's going to take resources. We have to, we have to get past that, because a lot of times we're settling for the status quo. And we really do need to be thinking about how can we make these small incremental improvements that can add up to a pretty significant impact.
As you were sharing that, Mary, I feel like I stepped on my soapbox, because I love what you're sharing. And I just want to join you in this moment too, and say, like, this is a good thing, right? And I also find with the clients I work with that they are settling for less, and they're settling for the status quo of this is the way we've always done it in the nonprofit sector. And I say that, and these are my opinions, right? But I say that from a place where the nonprofit sector, for as long as I've been in it, until just about the last 5 years, have not been interested in disruption. They just want to do what they've done, and with the resources they have, which almost always means antiquated resources, antiquated tech stacks, antiquated processes. And it wasn't until I went to AFP Icon Conference, again, several years ago, and I realized how far technology has come for our sector, the advancement in technology. And if we as nonprofit leaders are willing to just take a step back and look to see what is working, what's not working, let's listen to our team and all the various stakeholders and say, how do we make more impact, right, on our mission? So that's where I stepped on my soapbox. Like, just as you were talking, I found it, I pulled it out of the closet, although it hasn't been in there long. And, and I really
up on it with you for a second. And I'm sorry, I get very excited and passionate about this stuff. So I apologize that I just interrupted you.
That's two of us. No, take it away. I would love it.
I think that, yes, change can be intimidating, can be a little scary, right? And finding the time to invest, to think about this stuff, time is a precious, precious resource. But it's easy to give in to the status quo, but you need to think about the hidden cost of just doing it the way you've always done it, right? And you think about, as you said, there's been so many advancements from a technology perspective and techniques and tactics. Think about the effectiveness of your campaigns. What if you could improve your response rate to your capital campaign by 10 or 15%? Think about what that could do for your organization. Think about, you're missing out on all these opportunities potentially to engage with supporters in new and interesting ways and make those really powerful connections that are going to, create that loyalty and that interest and that, lifetime supporter that you need to have that sustainability. And, just think about the dollars that you're potentially leaving on the table. I mean, it's really powerful. You start to think about it from that perspective. This doesn't feel quite as intimidating or scary. You look at the impact, you look at, well, what could we achieve if we just make 1 or 2 small changes?
And you said that earlier, like these little nagging gaps, they add up. So that takes me to my curiosity. If you might be able to share some specific examples of how nonprofits you've seen have successfully done this, right? Like, what have they successfully done to improve their own efficiency without sacrificing the impact?
Yeah, absolutely. We, obviously at Bloomerang, we have lots of stories about successful customers because we're empowering them and we're supporting them on this journey. One that comes to mind is the Educational Foundation of Lake County. Inefficiency wasn't just creating some inconvenience for them, it was really holding them back. And they had a very outdated donor database, which made tracking donations and keeping their donor information up to date. It felt like a daily uphill battle for them. It was incredibly time consuming. And when they adopted Bloomerang, they were able to streamline their processes to the point that they were saving 2 hours every single day. That's 10 hours a week. And it was time they could now repurpose and spend on connecting with donors, which is what they want to be doing and building relationships, instead of wrestling with data and manipulating data and trying to pull data in from all different resources. And they started sending out really timely thank yous and more personalized messages. That's how they were using their newfound repurposed time. And over the course of a year, they achieved a 19% increase in donations. So,
wow.
So this is what happens when you address these inefficiencies head on, when you don't shy away from it, when you kind of go at it and kind of pick your point, pick your battle. Where are you going to start? Every small improvement, whether it's automating a task or, clarifying or simplifying a workflow, it's going to unlock capacity you didn't realize was possible. And another story that I love is the Mara Elephant Project. That's another client of ours. You think about, what if you could automate things to handle those routine, tasks like donation acknowledgements or, follow-ups to your event or sending reminders to your volunteers. If you could repurpose that time to creative endeavors, think about that. And Mara Elephant Project was able to experience the benefit of that. They took their manual tasks around donor management, like the acknowledgements and recurring giving tracking, and with just one full-time person and one part-time person, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners can relate to. It's a small team. It all felt really overwhelming for them. And after they automated with Bloomerang, they again were able to free up a significant amount of time and repurpose it. And again, they had pretty amazing results. Their donor retention rate went up by 15% year over year. And their recurring donor revenue, they grew it by 30%. So by repurposing their time and solving some of those inefficiencies and repurposing their time and focusing on the work that really matters in terms of supporting the mission, they were able to achieve some, amazing results and raise more. So that's just 2 examples.
2 phenomenal examples. And you're right. I'm sure so many of our listeners are thinking, I would like 10 hours in my day, right? Like I would love to find where there's 10 hours hiding in some nook or cranny, right? That like, it just goes unseen. These are phenomenal success stories, and the automation, it takes me back again to that floor at AFP Icon, the technology that we now have, the tech stacks, the integrations, the syncing. I mean, I work with so many clients, and Bloomerang is definitely one of my favorite CRMs, right? My favorite donor database. Also, thanks for being a sponsor of the podcast. However, I would have said this anyway, truly, because I work with so many nonprofits that are moving from an Excel spreadsheet into a true database, are moving from, they were sold a membership database and they don't have members, right? And so really moving to the right database to support them. And then of course, with the integrations that Bloomerang has added over the years, there's event, coordination and planning. There's volunteer coordination and planning. Like there are so many tools in that automation suite. And I also want to know about, like, every nonprofit operates differently. We're all nonprofits. That's a tax status. However, how we operate, right, is different. So I'm really curious, Mary, how you're seeing organizations might be able to tailor these strategies, right? You shared two fantastic examples. What other things should we consider when it comes to tailoring efficiency strategies to fit the organization's unique size, mission, capacity? Because I would think that also goes into play.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And, I think there's three things nonprofits can do that are somewhat universal and, won't overwhelm or overcomplicate, right? And I think the first one is start small. And, with simple workflows or routine tasks, start with one thing and go through an exercise of, okay, if we could change this one thing, what would it be? What would have the biggest impact for us? And start there. You don't have to tackle everything at once. Start small and gradually expand over time. So you can think about, okay, automate your donation acknowledgements, your thank yous. Think about the time that you spend, right? If you're hopefully sending out thank yous and acknowledgements, repurpose that. Think about the time they spend on year-end tax and giving summaries. We hear a lot from a lot of nonprofits that is such a huge headache.
Oh my gosh. Can I just say, for me this year, it wasn't, because I did that. I did that for one of my clients, and I loved the summary that Bloomerang offered. I love the tutorial. I attended the webinar, right? I think I forget who led it, but I did that. I paused it. I did the thing on Bloomerang. I went back and pressed play. I paused it. I did it again. Like, it walks me through step by step. And usually I'm the one that says, this needs to happen. I don't know how it happens, but make it work. And then for me this year, Mary, I got to be the one to do it. And it was fantastic because it's been a long time since I've been the one to do it. And it was just chef's kiss, perfection.
Well, I will let the product manager know, because that was something that we all felt very passionately about, because we were hearing from customers, my God, this takes us hours and hours and hours.
Days.
It's days we have to solve for this. So, those are just a couple of examples. Find that one thing that if you could solve it, it could have a meaningful impact, and start there. A lot of solutions have started building in or taking advantage of AI. And I think one way that you can introduce automation and technology is in the realm of crafting your communications, crafting those donation acknowledgements, crafting those welcome emails or those event follow-ups. Use the AI tools to get you started. I mean, how many of us have sat there with a blank screen and been like, oh my God, I got to write this email, and you labor over it for hours trying to get it just perfect. No, lean into the AI functionality that's built into the platform, and at least get 90% of the way there, and then go in and you can massage and tailor it and introduce the voice of your organization. But use that to save yourself hours of time. So start small, think about how you can tap into those AI tools. And prioritizing the integration of your tech stack can be so incredibly powerful when you have all of your systems connected, like truly integrated, and all your data in one place. Think about when you're trying to run a report today and you've got 3 or 4 different tools you're using. I got to go pull data from here. I got to pull data from here. Now I got to import it. I got to make sure those fields are mapping properly, or otherwise it's going to get out of whack. So think about the process of just getting your data in one place and then building and running a report. Incredibly time consuming. Reporting is something that comes up often. You hear it in almost every interview we do with nonprofits out in the market, prospects, and our research. We ask them, where are your pain points? Reporting. So think about ways to integrate and make sure your tools are connected, that your data is all in one place, so it can simplify some of those reporting and analytics activities. So those are 3 things to think about.
Those are fantastic. And I love that pain point, because I always find if you ask someone like, what keeps you up at night? Where's your pain point? You ask them those and they can, spout off probably many minutes, maybe hours, right? Where those pain points are. And then you're like, okay, great. If I could solve that for you, what would that do? How would that change your mission? So,
Exactly.
so many great insights. Go ahead. You got one more.
No, I was just gonna say that question, how would they need to ask that of themselves. They need to look in the mirror and reflect on that, ask that question. If we could solve for this, what could that mean for us? That's at the heart of purpose-driven efficiency.
Yes, the heart of purpose-driven efficiency. How would that impact us? How would that change us? How would that positively, right?
Yeah.
Like change how we do our business. So many great insights here, Mary. And I know that our listeners are going to want to connect with you and your team and Bloomerang. Where should we drive people to find you, your team, as well as contacts at Bloomerang?
Yeah, so the best thing to do is go to the bloomerang.com website. We actually just published a guide covering this topic. I think, could we share the link with folks, Jarrett, after the fact?
Yes, absolutely. It'll be in the link notes. So yes, we'll have that.
Perfect. So that goes into more detail than we were able to cover today. And if anybody has questions or would like to go deeper, you can always email me. I'm mary.crogan@bloomerang.com.
Love it. And Mary, I always like to end with this question: is there a takeaway or any advice, anything you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
Yeah, I think, if you simplify your operations and address some of these things, you're going to take frustration out of the equation with these repetitive tasks and disconnected data and all of that. And doing this, it's going to help your teams feel less stretched. And they're going to feel more connected, frankly, to the impact of the work that they're doing versus focusing on, oh my God, how am I going to figure out how to pull this data together and run this report? Or, oh, I have to go do these giving summaries or whatever it might be. So you're going to improve morale. You're going to reduce that burnout, which is so prevalent. And it's going to help your organization shift from, this scarcity mindset, right? And shift the mindset of the team to driving that next level impact and tapping into, the generosity that's out there for them.
Yeah. And let's not forget that there is so much generosity out there.
There really is. There really is. And it's just a matter of repurposing your time so you can go focus on what the nonprofits do really well, and that's building those relationships and engaging with their communities and driving for that impact.
Mary, thank you. You have been such a pleasure, such a joy to have a conversation with. And again, thanks for all you and Bloomerang does for our entire sector. I appreciate this time.
Of course, this was really fun. Thanks for having me.